This is Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini.
So let's talk a little bit. Dr. Jeff Golini, we're just going to refer to him as Dr. Jeff for the interview. It's just more informal. Many of you know that he is the brains behind All American Pharmaceutical and really the products that are produced and sold through All American EFX. And recently we did a show. And after the show we talked. And we realized that he and I have a lot of the same interests, but more importantly, the company, the mission of All American Pharmaceutical is actually very similar to the mission of All American EFX. And while you and I didn't discuss this specifically, I want to explain why it was a natural for us to join forces to both help the brand, but more importantly, for you wanted to help the show reach more people. Now, one of the things we're going to be talking about today is a recent study that was published by yourself that shows that All American Pharmaceutical is really a legitimate pharmaceutical company, but more importantly, while they produce amazing bodybuilding supplements, they are contributing to the world of cancer research and so on. We don't see this as a rule from most supplement companies, do we?
You don't. Most supplement companies are in the business of selling dietary supplements, which that's one great side of what happens. But then you've got the whole other research, pharmaceutical type side, and that's where we kind of come in, which makes us quite a bit different than just your typical supplement company or supplement manufacturer.
Well, there's a lot of companies out there that call themselves pharmaceutical companies, ABC Pharmaceutical, they make a couple supplements, but they're really not a pharmaceutical company in the sense that they're not doing things that pharmaceutical companies do. They're not doing research for things that actually could potentially become drugs.
Yeah, a lot of that is, just marketing in the name. I think, as you said, a lot of companies do use pharmaceutical. A lot of them say ABC Laboratories. It's kind of to give them more credibility. But no, they aren't doing what you would typically see from that type of a company.
Now, this segment will be once a week. It will be Wednesday. It will be the first segment. For those of you who already know about Dr. Jeff and many of his patents that have driven quite a few segments within the bodybuilding and performance categories, you can reach him by sending an email to onair@superhumanradio.com if you have specific questions about products. We're not going to ignore those questions, but that's not what this segment is going to be about. This segment is going to be about stuff that's in the news, that's going on, that's timely, that's topical, and we're going to have Dr. Jeff review science and opine about it. And I promise you this is going to be a major contribution to this show's platform as we move forward. Since we're talking about pharmaceutical companies, research comes into mind. I think one of the things that really distinguishes a real pharmaceutical company and just the average supplement company is research. I tend to think that the average supplement company gets abstracts, keeps its ear to the ground, learns that this does this, that does that. They make a blend and they say this is what it does because they're betting on the research that they've read. But they don't actually do any type of clinical trials with their supplements quite often. Very few supplement companies do that, correct?
Correct, and especially now where it's much more difficult because of the new FDA regulations to call such a study a clinical trial. So those days of old, having one or two people bench press and saying that XYZ company's product increased their bench by 50 pounds is a thing of the past.
I didn't know that. I wasn't aware that something had changed with the FDA that you can't do that anymore. When did that happen?
It's been kind of in progress over the last few years, but it was really driven by the major periodicals out there. They will not publish your research if it hasn't gone through this FDA IRB governing board, which makes it legitimate research.
Now, you recently had a paper published. This is something that you're working on specifically in your lab, about buffered versus non-buffered aliphatic fatty acids and their anti-proliferative effects on human tumor cell lines. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, this has kind of been, I think, like any researcher, it's great to develop a new type of protein for the sports market, but this is where we really can take what we do as researchers and really contribute to people, to problems and situations. A lot of times, pharmaceutical companies are going their direction, but I had an idea that being that we've had such a great success with the anti-inflammatory market, which I had 2 papers published, I decided to go off on some research and to do some in vitro studies to see if my hypothesis, would have any effect on these type of cancer cells. And this was kind of an expensive process. It's not something, that is going to go into a dietary supplement. This is off where, the St. Jude's, excuse me, of the world are doing this type of cancer research. But at the end of the day, it's very, very interesting. It's beginning stages of any type of major research, but we really did well against a lot of different type of tumor cells. And the Journal of Single Cell Biology picked up our research and will be publishing it. So they've accepted the research. It should be, within the next couple months. They don't quite tell you exactly when it's going to hit. But again, we did very well against a numerous different type of cells, cancer cells, and what have you.
Now, I know this was in vitro, so this is kind of like cells in an environment that's outside the body, and you're directly testing these agents upon that cell and what happens. What exactly are buffered versus non-buffered fatty acids, first of all, and what are aliphatic acids specifically? Well,
these were some specific. Because again, from our cresolazine, which is our anti-inflammatory, you got to look at what is cancer. What are these malignant processes? How do they occur? What are some general denominators? One of the general denominators that the medical industry is finding is that everyone who has some form of cancer, their body is in a low pH state. Now, our bodies like to be slightly alkalized to be performing properly. So from that, I got an idea that we've had such success with buffering other types of materials that I wanted to take a look at some prior research that gave me the idea that fatty acids may have some benefit to these cells. So essentially, we take the fatty acids, we go back into a reactor vessel, and we, in layman's terms, elevate the pH. We buffer it in a hope that it will get through the system intact to reach these specific cells. Mm-hmm. So that's what we did in this particular study. Is absolutely right. We took about 20 different types of things, everything from breast cancer to melanoma to lymphoma, and we treated one group with essentially a fatty acid that is untreated, things that you would normally be able to buy or take from your foods and what have you. Then we treated the second group with our treated fatty acids, and that's where the interesting stuff started to happen, because we saw nothing from just regular fatty acids. Now, keep in mind, before I even got to the fatty acids, I tried a lot of other things to see if they had any effect on these particular cells, and there was no effect. It didn't do anything.
How do you then... Okay, so how does it go from the petri dish to the human being? Obviously, there's a lot of steps in between, right?
This is just a preliminary research. Any type of research has to start in an in vitro. Obviously, we can't go and experiment on humans. The government doesn't allow that. So the first stages are to deal with cell line studies, rats, mice. I like to deal with cell lines because at least you're using human cell lines instead of using animals. Animals don't necessarily always react the same way that humans do. So in this preliminary benchtop research, this is groundbreaking, because no one has discovered this or come up with this. The next step would be to repeat this possibly go to a animal study, where unfortunately, animals have to be sacrificed in order to save human lives. You would subject these diseases to that animal, and then we would see how this particular product affected these cells in animals. The next step would be, if those type of things were feasible, would be to get certification, permission, IRB status, to then start looking on some human research. But that's a lot of money and a lot of years down the road. We're very far from introducing a product, but like I said, it's groundbreaking because no one else has really gone this path. And just a couple things that are really interested, like on the multiple melanoma, which is the OPM-2, we killed about 20% or 90% of that cancer. Chronic leukemia, the Lama 84, we took care of about 80%. So we're talking some high percentages. Right. And even some of our lower percentages, like on human breast cancer, we were about 30%. So again, this was very, very, very groundbreaking. It wasn't just 1 or 2% here or there. It was quite substantial.
There's something else that should be mentioned that I learned and I was quite astonished by. But you have a real lab there. And what I mean by that is you actually are equipped and you have done animal studies on the premises, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the fun things, is that here at All American Pharmaceutical, I have built an on-site lab that is second to none. We are running as very close to a Class 2 laboratory. It's completely clean, but we have all the staff and on-sites to be able to do most of this. Now, when you get to these complex cell line studies, obviously I can't bring in this type of stuff into a dietary supplement facility, right. So we do utilize our third-party labs. But absolutely, when we're doing toxicity studies and things of that nature, we have a whole on-site lab area where we work with animals. Quite common. Anything that I come out with that's under one of our branded items, you need to prove that it's safe. Just because somebody from China has it for sale or ABC Nutrition has it out there, that doesn't mean it's safe. Anything that I put out, I want to make sure it's safe. That's just kind of the whole protocol when you are introducing a new drug. You have to go through these steps. So these are some of the steps that are kind of transferring into dietary supplements under the new GMP regulations. Is we need to, as industry leaders, prove that the products are safe before we put them out on the marketplace.
Really interesting. Let's do this. Let's take a quick commercial break. For those of you who want to reach Dr. Jeff, send an email to onair@superhumanradio.com if you have a specific question about a supplement. Specifically, he'll be glad to answer it. And we've got a lot of good shows planned for Dr. Jeff as we move through into this new year. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Superhuman Radio.
Freakish muscle gains? Freakmaker Build from AAEFX is a scientifically engineered post-workout formula that combines protein, whey isolate, whey concentrate, milk isolate, casein, and egg, quality protein sources with carbolin, free alkaline, and medium-chain triglycerides. A 2-to-1 carb-to-protein ratio to optimize post-training recovery and repair. Freakmaker Build delivers 58 grams of fast-absorbing carbolin to replenish glycogen stores and 1.5 grams of Cree-alkaline pH-buffered creatine monohydrate. Get Freakmaker Build today. Go to superhumanradio.com and click the AAEFX banner ad.
Rhythm is a dancer, it's a source companion. People feel it everywhere. Lift your hands and voices, free your
Welcome back. We're talking with Dr. Jeff Golini. This is a new segment we're doing here at Superhuman Radio that will occur at 12 noon every Wednesday, called Science for Humans. It's going to give us a lot of area for us to discuss science that's useful for humans in all areas of the human condition. And we're just kind of just chatting right now about research. So, Jeff, did you do this kind of animal research on any of the supplement ingredients that you now have patents on and have such great success with, like Cree-alkaline and carbolin and things like that?
Absolutely, and I know some listeners, the animal activists, and I love animals, don't get me wrong, have a problem with that. But as I said, it's a small sacrifice to develop something that is going to help humans better their quality of life. So yes, all of the branded ingredients like crealkaline, creselazine, carbolin, we did start, even though, there's enough research out there showing that these ingredients, are available, are safe. We wanted to do our due diligence and to show people that they are safe. So it is important to do, these type of toxicology studies.
But more importantly, from an efficacy standpoint, I have to believe that if I was faced with buying supplement A or supplement B, they're both the same price. They both make claims to do the same things, but one has actual clinical research that shows its efficacy, and the other one is betting that it's efficacious because the research that they used to design the formula showed that this ingredient does this and that ingredient does that, so we think that synergistically it does this. I have to believe from a consumer standpoint, it creates a greater level of credibility in the eyes of the consumer that, wow, this company actually does research with their products before they just bring them to market.
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about the trust level that we have when we have to go get a prescription drug, we are trusting that that drug company did all of its due diligence, that that product is safe, except for the 100 side effects that you typically see, but essentially is designed for the cure or relief from that ailment that we're seeking. A lot of times we don't know all what went into that drug. Well, what makes a dietary supplement any different than a drug? It's something that is for humans. The difference is as a dietary supplement, we can't make a claim. That's when it becomes a drug. But folks who use dietary supplements use them because they want an alternative to drugs.
Not only that, but they use them because claims are made, right?
Well, exactly.
No one would take creatine if it didn't do what it's supposed to do.
So let's make sure that the creatine you're using is safe. And
Right.
Don't take my word for it. Look at the research. Was there a toxicology study done? Was it done properly? If somebody says a product does this, going to, grow an extra arm, well, let me see the research. And was it peer-reviewed and published? Was there an IRB number? I mean, there is a protocol for doing these studies.
What is creselazine? You've mentioned it twice.
Creselazine is a very, very interesting product. It currently is at FDA. We were granted in 2013 what's called an orphan drug status, meaning that when we are through, this product will be prescribed through the doctors and sold as a prescription item, yet it is not what we would consider a pharmaceutical because you will be able to buy its sister brand, creselazine, over the counter like it currently is. But it is our patented crealkaline that has been bonded to esterified fatty acids. So it's a very complex product, but I've done now about 9 or 10 studies, and the last 2 have been published. The first one that was published was done on adults. The second one was done with juveniles because we wanted to go into some indication that would get us into the orphan drug status. We're not a pharmaceutical company. I'm not going to develop a drug. That's not what I want to do. I want to develop things that are safe. So that's the other thing is even though this will have orphan drug status when we're completed, it will be completely side effect free, where when you look at the drugs that are prescribed for arthritis, good gosh, I mean, I was watching something on the TV yesterday where, if you've taken this drug and you've died, give us a call.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
you know what's worse than that? So you see a 1-minute commercial for a pharmaceutical drug. The first 10 seconds talks about the benefits of the drug. The next 40 seconds talks about all of the side effects. The last 10 seconds, they go, ask your doctor if Seroquel is right for you. It's like, really? Wait a minute. It causes all these problems. You have to put all that stuff in the commercial. And people who just go aimlessly down the road when their doctor says, I want you to take this, I feel sorry for them. Creselazine, the difference between the one that will be prescribed and the one that will be over the counter, is it the same? Will it be a different dosage? How does that work?
No, it will be exactly the same. The FDA has allowed us to sell two versions. So you will have, similar to a lot of the allergy medicines, where you have one form that's available over the counter,
Right.
the other one is prescribed by a doctor. What this allows is now doctors can add this to their repertoire. They don't have to go to a pharmaceutical drug. They can prescribe this as another option to curing what they need to do.
So where would you see this product being used? Where like COX-2 inhibitors are used, or where would you see it being used?
Yeah, similar. It would be for any type of arthritic prescription that would be prescribed. Now, we're going after the juvenile, which is 18 and under, because in the orphan drug, it has to be a population less than 250,000 people. So the FDA has kind of given us non-pharmaceutical companies an area to work in and to compete in. But, no, it will be the same thing. So it could be prescribed for adults. The indications and the claims will be for the juvenile, because that's the path that we've gone after.
Right.
But anyone with any type of joint pain, we're really joint specific. Wrist, elbows, knees, not lower back. Back, which is all chiropractic nerve, but any of your small joints. That's what this product is for.
Very, very cool. So we're coming close to the end of this interview, so I just want to say it again. So what we're going to be doing in the weeks that are coming forth is we're going to be addressing science in the news that fits the mission of this segment, and that is science that humans can use. They can use it to perform better, a sport. They can use it to perform better in the boardroom. They can use it to improve sleep. Whatever science is out there that fits the mission of the show, we'll be addressing this science from time to time, once a week, as we move forward with Science for Humans with Dr. Jeff Golini. I'm excited about it. There's a lot of things that we haven't been able to do that now we'll be able to do with Dr. Golini helping us here at Superhuman Radio. So I'm really, really excited about this.
Yeah, this will be great. I'm excited also. I think there's a lot of interesting topics that, we'll be able to give to the listeners. And again, it's things that you can use. Not everything is going to be like a cancer cell, which you can't do anything with it. This was more informative, letting you know what's going on. But we've got a lot of good things that, we want to be able to share with you.
Yeah. Dr. Jeff, thanks so much for being on the show today. And also thank you for being the first title sponsor to step forward in the history of the show in almost a decade. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Well, I've always believed in your show, Carl, and that's why we wanted to provide the grant so that it could continue forward.
Thank you. We'll talk.